The latest college football poll rankings came out last night, sort of as a break between those two games from Madison Square Garden last night in New York City on the basketball court. You had your latest release of the college football playoff rankings. Love to get your thoughts on those as well. Specifically, looking at this thing, and I keep hearing people who say they want an 18 playoff or a 16-team playoff. When I look at this thing, my question is, do we really need more than 4? Do we need more than 4 this year? Do we need more than 2 this year? That's what it sort of goes back for me. I'm not sure we have enough good teams. Not truly elite teams to fill an 8. I'm not sure we're going to have 4 when it's all said and done. Let's let these next 2 weeks play out, and let's find out if Michigan or Ohio State is really an elite team. Let's find out if Clemson can rebound, finish off its business in the ACC with the ACC regular season and championship game. Louisville, you got to think they're going to coast from here. And man, I would hate to be Kentucky on the 26th. Because if Louisville's still in that sort of odd man out scenario that it looks like they very well could be, how many do you think Bobby Petrino's going to put on his in-state rival in that one? As many as he possibly can. So we still have some things to play out here. But in terms of trying to figure out what an 8-team field would look like, it's not all that pretty when you think about it. Especially when you think about how the format is probably going to have to include at least a non-Power 5, maybe 2. That's going to happen. It's not just going to be, when you look at the playoff committee rankings from last night, it's not going to be as simple as number 1 Alabama against number 8 Penn State, the way it sits right now. Now, you're going to have a group of 5 in that 8. So what you would probably have right now is Alabama against a non-Power 5 in the first round of an 8-team playoff. That sounds fun, doesn't it? I don't even know who that would be right now. Would it be Boise State? Would it be Wyoming? This isn't one of those years where we have the vaunted fly in the ointment situation from a group of 5, is it? There's not a group of 5 out there right now that sort of catches your eye and makes you think, wow, if there were 8 teams, this team would definitely be in the mix. Maybe in the mix for 4. Not this year. Remember Houston? Wow. How long ago does that seem? Now, remember when Houston put a number on Oklahoma in the season opener? Whatever happened to Houston? Whatever happened to Tom Herman? We were talking about Houston as a part of the 4-team playoff. They got 2 losses now. Lost to Navy. Which I enjoyed, of course, because I love that triple option football that we see from the midshipmen. But that's probably the kind of matchup you would be looking at. I guess Houston could be in that mix as a group of 5 in an 8-team playoff. But with the season that they've had, it doesn't seem all that inviting now, does it? A 4-team playoff right now, if it actually plays out the way some people think, with the winner of the Big Ten championship game, Wisconsin and Penn State, in all likelihood, getting that 4th spot, that doesn't even look any good. Who was really excited this past year about Alabama-Michigan State in the semifinal? You could kind of see that one coming. I don't know if anyone saw 38-0, but it looked like a game that Alabama would win pretty easily, and it more than did that in throttling the Big Ten champ. It's interesting because it looks like right now that Ohio State may very well use the Alabama 2011 method in getting into this 4-team playoff. And I'll be interested. Will there be the same outrage, James Hardy, as there was in 2011 when Alabama made it to that BCS championship game against LSU. Ohio State beats Michigan, sending Penn State to the Big Ten championship game. Doesn't play for its league title and still gets the number 2 seed in the college football playoff. Will there be the same backlash that we saw 5 years ago with Alabama in that outdated, old-timey, don't-need-it format called the BCS? Because that's essentially what it looks like we could very well have with Ohio State. One-loss team, lost to its conference champion, ends up with a 2 seed. Isn't that what Alabama basically did 5 years ago? Isn't that the reason why we have a college football playoff now? That's what I thought. But Ohio State looks like it may very well follow that same path. And like Alabama 5 years ago, I have no problem with Ohio State being in the playoff. Because just like 5 years ago, it was pretty obvious to anyone who could look at it semi-objectively that Alabama was a top 2 team in the country, even with the regular season loss to LSU. And when I look at Ohio State right now, even though its loss to Penn State isn't of the same quality that Alabama's was to LSU in 2011, I still see, at worst, a top 4 team. And I think right now the committee has it right. I think Ohio State is the second best team in the country. Where I don't think the committee has it right is Michigan at 3. But again, if you use the simulated BCS formula from 3 or 4 years ago, and you can see this at bcsknowhow.com, amazing how last night's rankings mirror what the BCS would have had using a simulated format for the old BCS. In fact, 1 through 8, pretty much the same, almost identical to what the BCS would have had it. The only difference, at 6 and 7, the BCS format had Wisconsin 6th, Washington 7th, and the College Football Committee had them flipped. Washington 6th, Wisconsin 7th. Otherwise, 1 through 5, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, Louisville. Same for same. 8th, Penn State. 9th, Oklahoma. So really 1 through 9, the old format, the new format, would have had it pretty much the same.